How's it going? It's Man Tomorrow here. I want to thank you guys for coming through. Good morning, everybody. You know, I normally never do morning live streams, especially with all the stuff going on around here. I want to thank Jaquan, Magic Matrix, Orange Juice Jones, 2020, Donald B, Bronzebird, Sorrel, Naganya. All right, so let's get into this. So, hold on a second. So, what you have to realize is these dudes have to protect the system, and they simply want you to stay in the position that she chose for you in society. So you have to realize that by you not making deals or showing any type of respect for this domestic counterpart, I'm talking about the wrong one, the wrong kind, which are in high quantity, which are very low quality, which is the end goal for most of these people to go after, for the most part. You have to realize that you showing or exhibiting any level of happiness, any level of self awareness, any level of productivity that is not meant to benefit their group, they're going to be extremely mad at that. Because you have to realize that there's no such thing as I get what I want out of a bad system, but nobody has any level of proof about the things that they're talking about. Obviously, as you can see, our space has turned into a quote unquote co ed space. The reason why it's turned into a co ed space is because you have failures on both sides of the equation, both men and the women who want to make things look normal for things to be as compromised as they currently are. If you point to any other culture, there's no way that you're going to be able to team up overly experienced women with inexperienced men and think that's going to actually formulate a good resolve. So these people are fighting for their lives. They're fighting for the culture that they built. They're fighting for the track record that they were a part of. They simply have to act like everything is fine. This is why I don't trust women who come to compromise male spaces and all of a sudden building the code of personality and all of a sudden, okay, screw that mission. We're just going to give these people the compromise that they want. That's crazy. Because at the end of the day, if the women are not talking about legislation, if they're not talking about bringing their so-called decent homegirls with them, then they're not your ally. They merely are your enemy because they're going to fill this place full of a bunch of compromise. Because women have no problem going into every other situation that they don't even belong in, trying to make allies and inroads everywhere. Why? Because men don't hold them to any type of responsibility. That's how we got here in the first place. And that's something that you have to get. The men are on this shit too. Because to get the bag, man, the people who cannot uphold any type of principle, they're the ones who are helping the women win. Not that they need any help. I mean, legally, they're already ahead. You don't even have to do anything for them to even win even more. It's called number 16. It's called Black Girls. But you have to recognize that with this information, you're supposed to take some sort of action. In any, because I got an email from somebody and they felt like, well, it seemed like the dudes who don't have any experience with a certain demographic of women are always under attack by the guys who claim that they did. And these are unsubstantiated claims, by the way. What's going on, Brandon Baxter? So what you have to understand is at this point, your individual action is going to get you out of here. Like your individual action that led you to come to some sort of result or conclusion. You have to understand the difference between prospective costs and retrospective costs. Once you understand those two definitions, you can actually be able to see that you're the big you're supposed to make the best choices under the best circumstances to lead to the best results for you. Because the people who come in with compromise as their actual level of how things work, that's how they're operating. What's going on, Azrael? That's how they're operating. They're operating for their own best interests. But their best interest is about making the system that's currently here look like it doesn't have any flaws and that it doesn't have any problems, which in itself is a problem. So they try to make marketing anomalistic circumstances as normal to everybody else. So now pushing compromise or a compromised position is normal for these people. And it's so normal and that they're so locked in, they have to come out and preach to the entire world that there's nothing wrong with the relationship issue within this context. If you compare their context to other cultures that function and work properly, you would clearly be able to see that this stuff doesn't work and that most people are pretending. What's going on, Ike? That's why you will continue to be under attack, even if you're not attacking them, because they want you to stay in your place that she picked out for you. That's right. That's right. Why do you think that there's all these game dudes and all this male compromise starter kits that are just popping up within the space for progress? Because progress was the enemy. Taking action was the enemy. Getting to the money was the enemy, especially when people don't have anything to offer. And yes, most people do want comfort, but also most people wanted crack cocaine. And most people who actually dealt with it wanted heroin. They wanted crank. They wanted pills. They wanted ecstasy. What happened in society when we caught these individuals selling those types of things to people who wanted to be compromised? They were summarily and severely punished for doing so. So what you have to understand is that you have to build a bulwark against these type of things individually, because we can see where you are at online, but we cannot see what actions you are taking offline, because you're supposed to do something with this information. I mean, we come up with these terms like hoes are winning, which I do agree with, by the way, but they don't actually say what the man's role is in hoes are winning. Hoes are winning because men wanted to make deals. Hoes are winning because men wanted to compromise. Hoes are winning because men didn't want to make another choice. Hoes are winning because they wanted to brag on their sense of limited access as if it doubles as long term control. This access piece is a means to an end. I'm sorry. I'm not putting cameras in my house to deal with uncultured women. I'm not trying to have lawyers on deck to dealing with uncultured women. I'm not trying to do any of that shit. Why? That stuff is completely avoidable. Ryle, you're quite correct. They marketed a byproduct of success, which is getting whatever you want, as an actual end goal to try to skip to. So you have to understand this. It's all about the multiplier effect. Let's say that you multiply these compromised men who's willing to do pro bono work for the actual women who don't even like them either. Think about how many guys made live streams talking shit about dudes who travel overseas and want a different cultural experience when it came to women. And why don't you compare that to how many domesticated sex travelers themselves who go to these clubs, these bars, these sports grills, these events with nothing but the gathering of pussy on the brain. You see how they kind of projected how they actually approach women within the domestic environment with the actual men who travel somewhere else who want something else different from a more cultured environment. They always libel and slander these individuals because this is about the email that I was sent about the things that they are doing, but nobody ever concentrates on the outcomes of the actions that led people to actually want to go somewhere else and have a different experience. So, yes, you have to understand that you have invalidated their masculinity by simply not having any experience with the thing that made them a man in the first place. Yes, they cannot survive within a principle and an ordered system. This is why you put yourself in a principled and a ordered system. You don't need a system to protect you. Your own decision making process and the people who you hang around, that is the actual only principle that you need in order to survive. Because their invalidated masculinity at this point is the other half of the reason why everybody else is within this space. We talk a lot about the woman and her actions, but there had to have been a group of men who was willing to go in there and be these sexual parasites who was going to feed off of this broken system. And everybody wanted to market how easy it was to be in this sort of system. And here's the other thing. Let's say that these people did get the access that they want and that they got a decent person that they were around. These same people would turn around and try to turn that stable situation into this rotation nonsense. Now you could do this stuff with uncultured people because they don't have any type of level of respect for each other. But when you run across cultured people and you get caught up in something like this, these people are going to want to be able to vent some sort of consequences upon you because you can't be playing with people like that, right? So you have to understand that there's no rational reason for anybody to be marketing or hiding behind the street persona right now. There's no reason for it. There's no reason for anybody to be displaying a level of political ignorance while simultaneously asking or wondering why the actual system doesn't represent them when you don't even represent yourself as a full-fledged citizen by participating in the system itself. There's no real rationale to call yourself a conservative without understanding the actual history of conservatism within this country. There's no rationale for dodging the productivity piece and skipping towards the we got to get this woman right problem as your whole means of you being on this earth. I'm not going to lie. With the results that we have now, I really don't give a shit about dudes on child support, man. Because at some point, you have to know that this actual problem that we have is system wide. No matter how good it is, it can be turned into that situation. Got 46 people in here, got 26 likes. Y'all get the likes up for a second. Mm-mm-mm. So you have to realize that there's a reason why you see a kind of bottleneck of arrested development from boomer generation to Generation X, the actual generation I'm part of, to millennial to even younger people. The reason why you see the same bottleneck is because the people have the same problems and they're trying to appeal to the same solutions for that problem, which they haven't seen demonstrated ever. Hold on a second. This is where we currently are, man. But you got to understand that this whole invalidated masculinity piece is something that they're going to fight for. They're going to fight for the fact that all this access that they got that has turned them into a, a Bravo Alpha November. That, yeah, most of us don't even understand how they're Bravo Alpha November with this invalidated masculinity piece. Because when cornered, they're always going to tell you about their sexual access. No personal control, not what they run, not what they built, but what they temporarily had access to that you can't verify. And actually fighting from some sort of order and principle, you have the same problem that it is trying to get some of these women in line, which I don't think is possible. But you have to understand that almost none of these people are going to make it out of here. Almost none of them. The situation I came from, almost nobody made it out of that situation either. And damn near nobody made it who actually stayed. And if you run across them, they still talk about the same things as if it was mightily relevant for the time period that they did. I go back home, I still look at 50 something year old gang members wearing, child support uniforms. All because they don't want to admit that they made a mistake. And a mistake isn't minor either. The mistake is actually quite major. It's a lifelong life sentence that is based on simply making the wrong bet on the wrong people. So, as much as you think that she's not trying to change anything, the men are not trying to change anything either. It's the men, it's not the women. It is not the women at all, dude. It is not the women. It's the men who sell compromise more than the women. The women are just going to sit back and accept the winner of whoever. It's the men. So this individual asked me, so how do you solve a clientele problem? You don't solve a clientele problem. You go into another business. That's how you solve the clientele problem. Or the clientele problem is solved another way. When I used to own many more corner stores than I own now, what you do is you provide the individual with the level of person that they're okay with being around. Like nobody would respect in a corner store a black man sitting behind the counter taking and accepting money from anybody. But they would accept it from an older woman or even a younger woman because that's what the market forces have dictated. That's the level of principle or the level of things you have to put in front of these people's faces in order for these things to work right. And it's no different here because no one ever argues with me about what I'm talking about. And whenever it comes time for an argument, they always have to protect some bitch ass nigga and think that compromise has to go on in order for them to keep their place. And they're right. The women are absolutely correct. The Bravo Alpha November is her protection arm for everything. And it always has been. That's why when you have women who call themselves allies, listen, man, if they ain't got no legislation and if they really ain't fighting the fight, it's all fucking talk, man. It's all talk. But it's a system of protection that is provided by men. The men who went down this invalidated masculinity road. What was it? I think it was 2 years ago. How everybody had problems with the 94 crime bill and all that kind of stupid shit. The only way you can have problems with the 94 crime bill, for the most part, were the people who got locked up for this shit. Now, they were actually um, artificially over policed. That's true. A lot of these people did go to jail for no reason. That was true. But there was never any reason for you skipping to the actual illicit substance rather than you focusing on the productivity piece. That's something that was not true. Like heroin and cocaine and pills and all that stupid shit, that stuff didn't pick itself up and sell it. You had to deliberately go out to this supply chain, the wrong kind, and learn how that works. And then when they got caught, they made it society's problem because they couldn't get an easier job, easier than selling an illicit substance. And since that job wasn't available, they were going to punish society by trying to destroy society by picking up said substance and selling it to their own people. Now, the also invalidated part of masculinity is people that claim they care about this community shit. The only community that you have to worry about is your household. That's the only community that you have to worry about. Because if everybody took care of the household issues, which is the productivity piece and having a culture that produced an actual counterpart that you can actually deal with within the said society, then everything would already be solved. But see, that's not the case. They wanted you to outsource the community piece to clean up after other people within the community. Now, people mean different things when they talk about community. When women talk about community, they're talking about who controls it aspect, which is her homegirls. Because women just don't go up and fight on the behalf of men for no reason. They don't do that shit. There is an actual end goal here. They may not tell you what it is, but they have an end goal. That's normally not helping you with shit. When the men talk about community, the broken men, I don't want to hear redemption stories. Why have a redemption story when you could have did what the hell you're supposed to do in the first place, right? And the people who have the redemption story, those type of community people, they're not out here fighting against the avatar of the street dude. They're not doing that overall. They're really not doing that overall. They're trying to keep people's mouths closed about it, but then they're really not doing it overall. Because I think there's three type of community type of people. The first type of community people are the people who I just named, the redemption arc dudes. The second group of the community people are the hood hugs type dudes. The dudes who still want the respect of the community that they were never a part of, that they were never accepted in. So they volunteer their free labor in order to come help mentor some of the people who never gave a damn about them at no other point in time in life. And then you have the third group of community people. Now, the third group of community people is very important to pay attention to. The third group of community people are the people who don't have any experience, who never had any experience, who think that they're going to poach somebody off of the carousel by putting themselves around compromised women, waiting for them to suffer, waiting for them to starve, so that way they can be their knight in shining armor. That's the third group of community people, which is the people who you have mostly here. And then you have the fourth group of people that don't matter, which are the married dudes, which are the dudes who settle for in-house, which are the dudes who settle for co-parenting. Also here within the same space, acting like everything is fine. So now you got all these people pretending that everything is fine, and they have to superimpose this failed system to everybody else here, which leads to the rise of all these cult of personalities that balloon like mushrooms out of shit, to be more and more people who actually offer the same compromise position. All of these people here cannot afford for most men to get their stuff together. This system cannot afford for most men to leave this stuff alone. This system here, it cannot afford for men to make good decisions on a one-on-one basis, because this is why everybody within the system is preparing you to be on the market forever for their own benefit, while deliberately misunderstanding why other cultures is just walking past you by being participatory in the actual system itself, which is not hard. So let's look at it from the woman's point of view. Let's say that she's been raised in this system where she gets completely whatever she wants, whenever she wants. The only thing she had to do is throw some shaming language in your face, and you would have a bunch of Bravo Alpha Novembers. It's like her being a shark throwing chum in the water. Once she threw chum in the water, all the Bravo Alpha Novembers would come and they would attack the guy trying to bring some level of sense and order to the situation. Yeah, good for you, seeking of light. But that's where we at, man. That is where we are. And you have to understand that they're always going to be on offense. They're always going to try to make the woman's choice and choosing ability to be the standard of masculinity. Yes, a woman's promiscuity is the actual level of principle that is supposed to be exercised within a masculine environment. Like, we have all these complaints about the modern woman. We have no complaints at all about the modern man. The modern man is the person that makes all this stuff possible. The modern man is the person who chooses to deal with this type of system. The modern man is the person who sells the sort of compromise to this type of system. It's the modern man. This has nothing to do with the woman. It doesn't matter how a woman acts in society. It has nothing to do with your individual level of choice. It doesn't. It does not have anything to do with your individual level of choice. If you already decided that this system is not going to exist beyond its actual creation with your help, nothing that she says matter. This is why you have the prevalent thought of what a bitch think and what a bitch does. These are the dudes who are reporting on the shit all the time. The men are doing this shit. The women ain't doing nothing but doing what they can do. You have to understand that she is an inanimate object. Think of it like Pandora's box from Hellraiser. If you didn't touch the box, you didn't face any consequences. Guess what happens when you fuck with that box? Every single person who's tried to solve that puzzle of Pandora's box, they got fucked up. Every single one of them. That's because those specific people, and they are a very small group, they want a Keisha with less mileage on it. That's all they wanted. That's why they went over there in the first place. This is why I have to just kind of kick back and see what's being said within these spaces, because it's not an SYSBM thing. If you want to deal with a different cultural outcome, you can clearly go seek it. These people want the same thing under the same conditions to just treat them better. That's what it is. I had to realize that it wasn't a woman problem. It was an internal software problem for men. The ones who don't bring anything to the table. The ones who still want to negotiate. The ones who owe their whole existence to a broken problem. That's what the problem was. But see, that's where we are. Now we have all this advanced knowledge already. But what are we doing with this advanced knowledge? If you have all this advanced knowledge and you're not doing anything with it, then why don't you seek the knowledge out in the first place? You have to ask yourself that. Did you really seek out this knowledge to clearly have the same level of results that everybody else had? Hold on a second. All right, man, I'm back. Sorry about that. So you have to understand that this information was supposed to be used It wasn't supposed to be modified so that way you could become a better purple pill guy with the information, man. That's the problem. Yeah, but you have to recognize, that's kind of where we are. So as these people start to move in the actual directions that they're actually moving in, that's not growth, man. That's not growth. Hold on a second. I don't think this thing's loud enough. Oh yeah, there we go. I don't know why it went low, but that's what we got right now. So you have to realize that you don't need the help of all these people. You really don't. The only thing you need is the actual force of your actual actions to actually move forward. Because most of these people who I talk to or talk with offline, they think that they have to have this grand number of allies when they clearly don't need any allies at all. If you're moving in the right direction, you clearly don't need any allies, man. The only allies that you need is the actual plans that you make and the outcomes of your actions. Those are the only allies that you need right now. But that's where you got to go. Like, dude, this whole masculinity piece that's been exercised over the past 50 years is invalid. It just was an invalid form of masculinity that was not meant to be lived up to by anybody. So you have to realize that most people are pushing a compromised position in order to make sure that they make it. But this isn't something that you have to exercise. This isn't something that you have to exercise. Make them show proof of concept. Because if most people are failing here and they're failing outside of here, and you can't verify the actual product to which they're preaching from, then there's a problem. You're not supposed to be here to protect a damaged and destroyed system. You're not supposed to do that. I can't think of anybody's grandparents or great grandparents who would consider this level of masculinity, this invalid level of masculinity, as a success. I just can't think that they would. But there are people who will come here for some real solutions, though. Like, that's the problem. It's kind of like making somebody walk through an actual liquor store before they get to the AA meeting in the back of it. But you can't expect my level of silence while you try to run this type of nonsense on everybody, man. Like, that's also the problem. Yeah. Listen, man, I get that all the time, man. All the time. Some of these young ass homeless kids that I see out here on these streets, man, I tell them motherfuckers like, hey man, why you ain't in school? I'm like, bro, listen, go to school, go to the guidance counselor, tell them this statement right here. Oh yeah, they'll find you a place to stay. You don't have to stay out here with people who lost. Because see, a lot of people think that they are good people in these bad circumstances because they stayed. No, you're not a good person because you stayed. You stayed because you didn't want to try anywhere else and you wanted to be the best person out of these people. Well, Ryan, well, you have to understand that. Our level of cultural expectation is to make sure that the democracy exists, that it keeps netting men in, that we make sure that this is the only cultural expression that they ever going to receive. Yeah. What they're doing is they're just teaching you compromise. What's going on, Imar Redfield? But that's what the problem is. I mean, how many people do we have burrow into the SYSBM space who's still talking about the relationship nonsense? How many people burrow into the IDMOR space still talking about the relationship nonsense? How many people burrowed into the passport community still talking about the local relationship nonsense? How many? How many? Oh, I know. But see, they want to hide behind now the black youth that they put here on the planet now. No, they want to hide behind those dudes now. When there's clearly no need or reason for any of this stuff. The only thing you have to do is ask them about two things: the multiplier effect, and show me on a bar graph or a line graph when is this stuff supposed to be fixed long term for everybody. Because a lot of these people didn't want to make it past the relationship talk, man. They actually wanted the relationship piece to hold them in stasis so that way they wouldn't have to focus on the productivity piece. That's really what that was about. How many dumbass men did you see cannot even pick up a book or learn about the society that they're in, but they expect that society to actually serve them in some specific way? That's what they're trying to do. Like most of these people are trying to kind of add the productivity piece, but not so much more that they won't be respected by her, and then they're trying to bring her back into the fold, man. But they're superimposing these problems as if they are permanent when they're clearly temporary and optional. And yes, they have to keep throwing you under the bus over and over and over again. They have to keep claiming that this stuff is easy for them, and somehow they face no consequences when they know damn well that they face both, like everybody else. Remember, most of these superstars are still getting taken for everything. You know who goes silent whenever Dr. Dre settlement came out? The whole relationship industry. If people are facing real world consequences for thinking that they had this stuff under control, what in the hell would make you think that you got it even more under control than people who are way smarter and way more financially independent than they are? Oh no, no, no. You're right about that. They have men around as the attack dogs. Like if you listen to Sister George's Tough Talk stream yesterday, recognize Game was acting exactly like a matriarchal pit bull. That somehow there was something wrong with men because they didn't want to come to the table and listen to women speak to men. That's the type of shit I'm talking about, man. Not specifically, but that's an example of a guy who wouldn't have a platform anywhere, but he was given one by a woman to actually perform a specific role in bolstering their point of view. This all isn't meant at him, but that's just an example of what happened when you give bitch ass niggas a voice. That's not about productivity. They try to talk about the relationship shit. I mean, but you have to realize, man, there are men who are willing to be that type of dude in those type of circumstances, and there's far more than you actually think. Hold on a second. Jesus. But that's what we are. They're always going to sell compromise because they don't have any other choice. All right, man, this is how you do this. If you want me to move to a specific place, one person give directions. Because I can pay attention to all you motherfuckers. One person give direction. If you can't do that, then just get the fuck out of here. So, so what I'm saying is clearly that you can solve this stuff in your time. The only thing you have to do is get rid of a couple of inputs, and you're going to be good. This is why you should always work around other people. So that way you can see how masculinity works in other places. So that way you can see how respect works in other places. Respect is not a byproduct of game. Respect is a byproduct of cultural programming. Like I said, man, like I don't run into Bravo Alpha Novembers like this in person, man. Because you wouldn't expect a person to exhibit that level of behavior unless they're holding a gun or unless they're standing behind 10,000 people. Yeah, but this is currently where we are, though. And this stuff is so easy to avoid. The invalidated masculinity piece, you can't have any of that stuff being part of your actual place where you're going as a man. You just can't. It's either you want to bring it with you or you want to leave it behind. There is no in between. Because those people clearly don't want productivity to speak. That's why they focus on the relationship talk piece. You don't have to negotiate with anybody once you're actually winning. You ain't got to hold nuts for nobody. You ain't got to try to have all these compromise alliances. You ain't got to keep doing none of this stuff. Once you got your own shit that you actually work for, you ain't gonna want to team up with a whole bunch of people. I don't see lawyers and attorneys and people who got real money talking about this community shit. I don't hear them saying that. Most of the women who take all those loans and shit from the government, which is a form of reparations, by the way, I don't see the women running out trying to rush to fucking deal with men or try to put men on the team. Unless they're severely compromised and they don't pose a threat. Like, dude, you got the same ability to do this that they do. You don't have to wait. This ain't how it was 20, 25 years ago where you have to have all these associations and connections. No, man, you can just get straight through the door with the skills and abilities piece now. And the skills and abilities piece, what has invalidated this marketplace anyway. Think about it. All these so-called women allies and shit, like, dude, they're not bringing principal men on to talk about shit. They're bringing whack ass dudes on to talk about their power, which is the relationship piece, because that's where the women's power is overly inflating their market profile and giving access to very few people. That gives rise to this actual term called sexual inflation, which is why most of the Bravo Alpha Novembers who actually face consequences for dealing with this environment, they don't want you moving to a better setup that respects men. They don't want that. They want you trapped in here, right here. That's why this stuff will never work. That's what I'm saying, man. Yeah. I've seen it overseas when I was in Germany. I was in Germany. They was exhibiting the same level of disrespect that they showing over here to people, and they just never ran out of options. You can't really control anything unless you can take the options away. By raising your profile and getting additional options for yourself. That's how that works. Because you have to realize here, somebody is going to lose. The people who are less adept at surviving within an environment are going to lose eventually. Now, they can always remain at the bottom just so long there are not new players that are coming onto the field. This is why the complaint about the actual immigration piece. Obsolete men are complaining about immigration. That's who complain about immigration. People who wanted that artificial bottom. But the people who are already on the move, always on the move, they never really cared about what immigrants do. Actually, they've already set up systems in place to make a whole bunch of money off of these immigrants once they get here. The same people you hear complain about immigrants, these church organizations, are the main ones getting paid off of making sure their whole life is set up correctly. What's going on, Erica? And and here's another thing, Erica. Like Germany is the actual polar opposite of America, where men have unlimited sexual options and women have to go and find them a mate to settle them down off the marketplace. It's the same thing. You had dudes, regardless of how they look, they got a bunch of sexual access and they didn't do anything productive with the shit. When there clearly was women there who actually wanted a family. I'm talking about even black ones from like Africa and shit. That's what I'm saying. These people are willing to pay. They're willing to live together as a group. And so when the men were over there, like a lot of dudes are over there stuck in like low wage jobs just to keep their sexual access up. It's no different than women here staying in an actual efficiency with two people in it, just so that way they could keep their sexual options. It's the same dynamic. But if you don't know and have never heard about that, you won't even think these things are going on. What's going on, Ryle? What's going on, man?
Peace, MOT. Peace to the chat as well. I'm not gonna be long. I definitely wanted to chime in. You know, um, me and Complex Design, we talk a lot, and you know, we we talked last couple of days, and I was telling him, I was like, for men like us, we're disruptors as it relates to what present day black thought really is.
Correct.
Um, um, black black present day thought is really centered around entertainment, um, dudes peacocking, um, women acting oblivious to the types of guys they choose to be with, Um, and what business minded people force non business minded people to do, is to think critically, because we understand that when we don't necessarily see problems, we see opportunities. And if you are able to solve people's problems, those opportunities present um, ways for you to make money. When the person first created the remote control, they dealt with an issue that people were having. People were tired of getting up and having to turn the TV all the time. They wanted to be more comfortable, sit on the couch and turn the TV. So somebody came up with that idea to create a remote control to facilitate that convenience. So and so when we what we recognize is that the reason why we've gotten so much pushback in this space, um, is specifically because black thought, especially from the male perspective, even the female perspective too, is not centered around productivity. Um, Women do not choose men based on productivity first, like many other groups of women do. If you look at Hispanic culture, for example, like I've seen plenty, beautiful Hispanic women. They weren't with the dude that was considered jawline type dude. They went for the productivity first. And so, not
Yeah.
saying that looks don't matter, but I'm just saying, like, in terms of culture, they're looking at something much more concrete in terms of skill set. And so I remember this. It used to be this one particular chick that used to be in the space. She was Hispanic, and I never forget when she said this. She said, I don't understand why black people, she said, especially the women, look down upon blue collar black men. She said, because she said, if it wasn't for the blue collar men in as far as Hispanics are concerned, she said, we wouldn't have made it. She's like, she said, we give blue collar men a high level of respect in our group because we know that we would not really be where we are as a group had it not been for those men going out there and doing all that hard work and grunt work to make sure that we could build up the way that we have been building. And so when your group is more centered around entertainment, peacocking, you know, game theory, not true game theory, but gaming, um, your cultural competency is based on it's a deck of cards that's easily blown down. And the reason why it's blown down now is because the 1990s was the last decade where you could get away with low below average intelligence.
Correct.
Now you have to have competency because you're in a knowledge based economy. I mean, there's a reason why they use this particular term, because you need the right type of knowledge in this particular environment to actually advance. And so when you have black male channels that are specifically blocking channels like the Black Brain Trust from being having their content shared, so other black men can know about these programs that's out here, because a lot of black men just, it's not that black men are lazy just as a collective. There are some lazy black men, but a lot of black men just don't even know that there are all types of programs. I mean, I didn't even know this until I was watching a show on the Black Brain Trust maybe a year ago, maybe a year and a half ago, and Mike V was talking about drone certification programs that they had out there. I was like, wow, damn, they got that. So you know, many men just don't even know that those programs exist. And when you have groups that are saying, when you have people that are saying they're here to help black men, but they're blocking a channel like that because they consider competent, business minded men as arrogant, then
No,
you're really dealing with some really emotional dudes who are not really tapped into the way that they need to be tapped. And I saw on somebody's stream recently, it was some dude. He was 53 years old, and he was like, yo, what what things in tech should I be looking to get into if I'm interested in going that direction. So this man is 53 years old. We don't know how long he's been in the space, but for let's say if he was in the space for 3-4 years and the Black Brain Trust has been around, all this time, he doesn't even have he hasn't even had the access to the space like that. Well, he's had it, but he didn't know it was there to even know, like, he could have been got into something just by watching the Brain Trust content. But at 53, he's sitting up here asking for answers. So even men in their 50s are still looking for some guidance, because if you don't know, you just don't know. That doesn't make you a bad person. You just don't know where to look. Even in a lot of these companies, they're building out your job. They'll give you a job profile and see whatever job you start out with the company, what's your projection in the company, and they'll show you how to actually go, what things you can do to major in school to get you more skill sets that can allow you to be promoted in the company. They'll give you all this information so they want to see you develop, because companies need more developed talent now, especially with this great resignation going on. They need much more diverse talent, because the people with the workers have much more leverage than they used to. Companies that were used to just being able to get over, but now people, especially with exceptional talents, can actually negotiate more salary, work-life balance, all these types of things.
That's the thing,
So
man.
you can
Move
put
around and
yourself
all
in
that
a
stuff.
great position. Say that again.
That's what I mean. They can move around. They can do all that stuff. So like being highly mobile is actually the enemy.
Right. Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah, yeah. So
So
so so it's like you have to understand that what I mean about the obsolete kind of like the invalidated masculinity piece. It really pains and it hurts these people to see people be happy as shit without going through
right.
the child support system and without with skipping out on all that bad cultural thing that they deliberately fed themselves into, that they deliberately hold up as the standard of masculinity. So when people just bypass that and go straight to the money, dude, they can't stand that. Dude, they can't live with it.
Right. 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 Like I said, man, the 90, I keep hitting, I've been saying this, man, for a long time. And a lot of us, man, got our wake up call, man, when the economy crashed in 07, 08. You know how that was. You know what that experience was like. I know what that experience was like. Complex design, he knows what that experience was like. Like, we have to get in the know of things. Like, it doesn't make you a bad man when you don't know. You just don't know. But when you willfully are not trying to know, then that's what make you bad. And when you're constantly blocking content specifically that is geared towards helping Black men, the more Black men we help, the less of an argument women can make about men. And so the reality of the situation is that these dudes who have a vested interest in the status quo, they have a vested interest in keeping men triggered and angry at women all the time, because that keeps the donations being fed to them in their channels. And so, a lot of times, man, we're giving out information, man. We're not asking for any money like that. You know what I'm saying? We're not asking for dudes. Like, a lot of times, like, we feel so blessed to have gotten the information and utilizing the information to help ourselves grow as individual men. We just want to pay it back, man. We just want to pay it forward. Like, we want to see Black men with smiles on their faces, knowing that they accomplished some things, because we know a lot of brothers have gone through some things. So your accomplishments are going to feed your self-esteem and your confidence. So the more you achieve, the more you're going to grow internally as a man. And so, but you have to be on your purpose. But it's hard for you to be on your purpose when you constantly being triggered by the content that you're watching, which is not about you growing and personally developing. It's all about keeping you in an emotional, angry state that's just going to keep you paying to keep you in that same emotional turmoil that you've been going through. You got to get out of that. You got to get out of that triggered state and get into a productive state. Because once you get to the productivity, you have no reason to be triggered all the time, because you're following your purpose, and nothing makes you happier as a man, nothing makes you more content as a man than being on your purpose. Not a woman, but your purpose. The women will come. You got to be on your purpose.
feel like most of this problem is that that's true, but these people also haven't seen the successful men even be, I hate to use this word, validated in any significant way within this society without kowtowing to this bullshit. And that's what it is. Like, you have to understand, like, these environments kind of super soak these dudes into a false sense of masculinity and a false sense of success within an environment. And then they can't operate anywhere else outside of that. Like, they can't operate in a level of principle. They always have to have a situation where something has to be leveraged. There always has to be some heel turn. There always has to be a dropping of the ball or revealing the true intention. There's always has to be this long term solution of when you gonna bite somebody in the neck. And
Mhm.
that's all these people have ever been around. Like, they've never been around a situation where there's a if then else. You get a solution. That's the way that works. They never even lived in that type of society. So being in a constant state of being gaslit and compromised is quite normal to these dudes.
Right,
It's quite
right,
normal.
right, right. And that's why, when I was talking to Complex, also I was saying, I was like, Complex, I mean, I was like, we got to realize, man, that, we're light years ahead of these people. Like, I say, we don't really truly understand how far beyond we truly are. I was like, I said, that's why we get frustrated because we're having a different conversation. We're talking about things that can advance not only us as individuals, but as a group. I was like, they're talking about things that only advance themselves individually. That's it. And so when you have that kind of mindset, I was like, you're going to be frustrated, by these type of conversations. I was like, as well as myself, because we just not understanding truly, like, how men are really against being productive. Like, it just doesn't resonate with us because we're men. It will never resonate with us. Even when we were in our worst positions, we were still with a mindset of being productive. It was just about getting to the information that put us on the path that we needed to be on at that particular time. I said, but at the end of the day, like, this is why there's so much pushback, because the state of black people presently is not productivity, it's entertainment. I was like, you have people that was literally making the argument against the Black Brain Trust, why it's not successful, because they use the words like, man, y'all dudes is boring. And I was like, I said, think about it. I was like, they think that even when it comes to your productivity, it has to be entertaining. I was like, your life is not entertainment as a man. I was like, that's not what it is. I was like, but in their mind, they still think that, well, you have to be entertaining. I was like, but we can go to some of these other channels. We can go to Marcus Brownlee channel. We can go to some of these white channels that talk about similar types of things that the Brain Trust talks about. I was like, they not entertaining like that. They're not the most entertaining people like that. I said, man, but they got millions of subscribers. They got millions of subscribers, which completely refutes the notion that you have to be this entertaining person just to give certain information. Some stuff is just not about entertainment. And your productivity as a man, your purpose as a man is not meant to be entertaining. It's supposed to be your inner compass that points you in the right direction so you're not off task, you're not off focus, and you can actually get to that bag and ultimately to that level of success that you want to be to want to have in life as a man.
Yeah, but you have to realize that this is a choice. Like, doesn't matter what the programming is, there's still a choice mechanism here.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people don't like the choice mechanism because they want to kind of ride the fine line between two different cultures, the past and the present. It's kind of like, once you start touching that level of money, like real legitimate money, you're going to try to put these people back into your life and you're going to realize that it don't work and it don't fit.
Right. Right.
And after that, they think something is wrong with them because they did it, quote unquote, right inside their head. Like, they went out, they did this, they did that, but you still have the level of compromise because you never really let these people go. I mean, the growth Most of the growth actual situation has a lot to do with the type of time and the people you're spending with after you're actually done with it.
Right.
After you're done with it. But a lot of people think that no. I got my stuff together so that way I can now shoulder the burden of the consequences that everybody else couldn't financially. It's like, no. It's not just a financial burden, it's an emotional one too.
Mm-hmm.
Like you keep yourself around unwell people, unfit people, expecting things to work. And when they don't work, you blame everybody else but you. Like,
Right.
these people never exhibited a level of principle that has anything to do with your actual thought process.
Right. Yep.
Yeah, it's like this. Like a lot of people have to realize that a lot of people, other people, have actually done this alone thing. I think that genetics is sometimes an experience marker, and most of these issues people have solved hundreds of years ago about the productivity piece, about how to turn children into productive individuals who can survive within the environment that they came up in. I just think that the ball has been dropped deliberately because we wanted other people to solve our problems for us. The only thing we had to do was just make things bad enough to where somebody else was going to come in and run in and solve our problems for us. And that's what the problem was. Like, okay, so everybody else can focus on the productivity piece, but our people are just going to focus on the entertainment and the nonsense and the fuckery and bullshit, like blah blah blah. And it was never meant to work that way. It was never meant to be a long term way station for people. Now, if you're trying to create individual cults of personality, okay, I get it, and I do get it. But the people who made it that way, they never turn around and do what we're doing with our information. They never do that. So it's like, and you have to realize that we have 50 years of data, 1970 to 2020. It didn't work. Didn't work.
Right. Right.
Didn't work. Like the Goldie and Mac shit didn't work. The
Well,
creating kids and families based on game, the shit didn't work.
I was telling Complex, like me and you were, I forgot whose panel we were on, but somebody was asking about some information about real estate, and I think I posted the commercial real estate for dummies book, and you cammed up and you put up the book. You put up the actual book. You had the book
Yeah,
in your hand. You had the
yeah,
book in your hand, and it was just funny, man. We laughed about it, and but it just shows you, like, you have men in these spaces that's thinking on the same wavelength. We're thinking on the same wavelength. We're moving on the same wavelength. We get it. You know what I'm saying? And I think, one of the things that I said to Complex, I was like, whatever minor differences we might have, men like us, we can't allow those minor differences to prevent us from linking up and doing business. Um, because we have more in common than we don't. And so, you know minor differences, I mean, it is what it is. Every man has a right to have his own, difference of opinion. um but, you know the other types of dude that's in a space that's not about the productivity, like, we can't allow them to throw us off to the point that we don't link up and do what's necessary in terms of moving the ball forward, because we have some very intelligent minds here. I've said this plenty of times about people like Dr. Phoenix, for example. When he's done, when he's finished with school, we need to be able to put him in a hospital we built for him to run. Like, that's
yeah,
how we need to be thinking. We need to be thinking on that level. How can we build a hospital so this man over here, so his talent can stay with us instead of going to somebody else's group and making money for that group? Because, yeah, he's going to make money. He's going to get paid, but the money that they're paying him is gonna pale in comparison to what they're going to make off of him. So we need to have something set up for him, because if anybody's listening to, Dr. Finn, everybody knows he knows his stuff. Like, he knows his stuff. Like, it's nothing like, we need that kind of talent in our group. And if we're not building the infrastructure, the institutions, because the institution building is what is going to define the group, not the entertainment, but the institutions that you build, because great nations are recognized by the institutions that they build. So if you're not building the infrastructure, the economic infrastructure, so you can employ, so you can make sure like the people in your group are getting money. If you're not in that kind of mindset, then man, you're just out here, man. You just really wasting time, man, because that's what you're supposed to do. And then you getting on your soapbox saying, well, what they're not giving us. Well, that's a whole different group. They're not going to give to you. They're going to give to the men in their group. And if you're not going to listen to the men in your group that know what they're talking about in terms of business and things like that, if you're not going to listen, you can't complain about what another group of men won't do for you when you won't even listen to the men in your group that's giving you the knowledge to get to the bag like that. Don't make any sense.
I mean, but it's a deflection though. It's a deflection to point to another group of people because you ain't doing shit. Like that's
Right.
always what that has been. It's kind of like when people focus on what women get and all that kind of shit. I'm like, yeah, like I'm like I thought you people wanted to see reparations. So if they're paying one group of people who ain't sharing shit with you, just make alliances with those people who are already involved by being involved on your own instead. But see, most people look at the involvement piece as something that's crazy. I'm like, no, involvement is how you get stuff done. And it's like people are like, oh, you on the left, like, dude, listen, I'm on the side that's providing tangible outcomes. Once you get to money, you don't need but equal protection under the law. Don't believe me? Look at people from India and people from the Arab countries. They come here, they get to the money. You don't know where these dudes hang out at. Why? They're not
Exactly.
mingling with you. They're not co-mingling with you. You got
Exactly.
the same level of choice that they got when they get to the money.
Right. Yep.
Same level of choice.
Yep. Absolutely. I
And
saw it.
and I figured it out. I figured it out. And you can challenge me on it because I think I have it figured out, but maybe I need to have it more fleshed out. I think I know what it is. People who team up, you see, you have the wrong type of people teaming up, which is fine.
Hmm.
But the right type of people can't team up is because there's it doesn't take a lot of degree of separation before those people who we're trying to leave behind come into our group and sabotage our entire group. Just like the
Hmm.
manosphere. The people
Hmm.
came in, claimed that they wanted to help black men, and turned out they just wanted to do entertainment, fuckery, nonsense, and bullshit.
Hmm.
And then and then they kind of lobbied together to create their La Costa Nostra to fuck up channels and shit. So it's like yeah.
Right.
But look, you still gotta move as if those people don't exist.
Right.
Like my content hasn't changed. My content doesn't need to change. It was the same when there was 400 motherfuckers in here. It was the same when there was 15 people in here. My content doesn't need to change because I'm fucking right according to the
Right.
outcome.
Right.
So it's like most of the people who contact me are women, not men, women behind the scenes, mostly fucking women. Yeah,
Yo, it's funny you said that, man. Me and Kamala was saying the same thing. Like I was saying to him, like, I noticed like when it comes to the productive black men channels, like I've been watching, I watch Alonzo a lot. So, and I was telling him, I said, dude, I was like, when he goes live, I said most of the people that's in his live streams are women. It's not dudes. When he's putting inviting us to the wealth brunches that he does, me, she, and maybe a few others are consistently showing up. I mean, he has come into the spaces. He's given the links. He get like, yo, hit me up. Here's the link. Y'all can get on here. And I'm telling you, it never fails. Even when we show up, most of the people that's in that participates that we see are women. It's not the
yeah,
dudes. And I told
yeah. It's
Complex, I
not.
was like, this is gonna be very embarrassing to have men of this particular caliber and others in this space, and you have all these dudes not taking advantage, even though these men are giving this information to help black men grow
For
and
free,
develop.
for
And
free,
you
for
got
free.
for free now, and you got all these women that they're complaining about who are actually utilizing the information that's meant for them.
Yeah, and it's like, okay, are you not supposed to not work with the people who are ready? Like that's the other problem. They think that they're just gonna tire you out to the point to where you're just gonna have to work with us anyway. Like, no, I can still work alone. There's still people who are willing to go. It just won't be these people. That's all.
No, no,
Well,
no, absolutely not. Absolutely not. I told Complex this, man. I think last week we were talking, and I said to him, I said the funny thing about it is, and this is sad to even have to say this, but it's true. As it relates to business, like in like when you're actually doing business, I was like, you have an easier time get like actually working with non-black people than you actually do working with black men. You get more of a pushback and problems
Oh,
with black men than you do with non-black men. You do. You do. You even talked about it in your experiences with these nonprofits and stuff like that. The people who gave you the most problems was the dudes. Was the dudes. See, they don't want to have that. They don't want to have that conversation. They don't want to have that conversation because it's going to expose them for man truly not being what they say they're about. They're using blackness. They're using blackness as a bone to get you distracted to what they're really about. They're not about blackness. They're not about helping black people or black men. They're about self-aggrandizement under the auspices of helping black men. And
yeah,
so
but
we
you have to
just saw it.
realize that.
But hold on, we just saw with even with this BLM. What happened? Now the founder and the husband they got brought up on these fraud charges. A
Hey,
lot
I
of us
don't care
saw
about
that
none
they
of
was on
that.
some
That's
fraud
a
charges.
lobbying organization, and I didn't donate to it, so I can't complain about it.
Oh no,
There's
I'm not saying that.
more.
I'm
Yeah.
I'm saying that they moved in this. I said this space has moved in a similar way to groups like that. On it, because how who is easier to trick you? Somebody that look like you, that's saying things that appeal to you emotionally. And so, but when you put that business hat on and you see how these dudes rock, they don't move like business. First of all, in business, the most important thing that you got to recognize in business truly is that business is about building relationships. You don't want to go to a deal and try to extract the most money you can from that deal for a one-time deal because they might do a deal with you, but then they might be like, man, this person is greedy. We don't want to work with them no more after this. But if you have the sense, what you'll do is you will go for that
That
money
co-
that you're content with, in the hopes that you can come back later and do more business with that person over time.
yeah,
That's
but not
how
if you're a
you build
parasite.
the relationships.
Yeah, but but see, most people are a parasite. They do the opposite. They come in, they
Right.
feed as much as they can, they cannibalize and leave it for dead, so that way it doesn't work for anybody else.
Anybody, right? Right.
Yeah, so that's the difference between building a business and people come in strictly to cannibalize things and remove all the value. So that's kind of the
Right.
difference between both of those things. And you have to recognize, like, as soon as you go up a couple of notches, you're not going to be able to work with anybody anyway because they have to bring the old levels of compromise in to the actual group, so that way
Right.
they can function because they can't function on 100% principle, and that's really not my fault. And it's like the more you go up, the less people that you're going to have to work with. Why? Because they're going to bring those degrees of separation along for the ride that you want to leave out of this situation in the first place. And those
Right.
people, they don't know how to operate not being around that, because you know what, after they come around us, they go around in these other no-go zones, and they don't know how to code switch. They have to bring the level of compromise with them, and that's kind of a problem.
Right. And also too, it for especially as black men listening, when these types of people try to make the argument that people like us are leaving them behind, we're not leaving them behind. They're staying behind. They're making a choice to stay behind. It's easy for them to make that. It's easy. Like nobody says, "Hey man, Michael Jordan left people behind." Like he went out to be the best basketball player that he could be. I mean, that was his goal, to be the best basketball player he could be. And so when people have this mindset of, man, they leaving us behind. It's not that you're being left behind. If you were truly being left behind, then why do you live in an environment where there's a proliferation of information to help you get ahead? How are you being left behind? That's nonsense. And that's what I said on She's channel the other day when me and Alonzo was up there. I asked the question. I said, Remember when black people used to talk about how black people are crabs in the barrel and they don't want you to get ahead? I said, what are we doing right now? I said, we're on a panel when we could be over here doing something else. We're on a panel sharing information, sharing perspective, giving the information. I said, black people can't, especially black men. I said, we can't make that. I said, we can't make that argument anymore. We can't make the argument that black people want to hold you down. I said, all we're doing in these spaces, well, a lot of us in these spaces, we're sharing information on tangible things that can help you as a man advance. So you can't even use that as an excuse anymore. You're in an environment that is proliferating information at such a high level that you have literally no excuse for not actually being on task anymore. You have no excuse.
I mean, but I used to think it was a literacy problem, but it isn't.
No, it's not. No.
It's not a literacy problem. It's a lack of basic inaction, and they've been able to benefit without action for so long. Inaction
Right.
is normal.
Right.
Pass it off on somebody else, so it's somebody else's responsibility. That's normal. So it's
Mm-hmm.
like, when you do work with these other people, they care about the outcome, and they don't have a whole lot of time to be sitting around all day talking about it. You meet them, you sign the contract, you leave. If there's a problem, you fix it. Other situations is you you compromise, you go in, you survive the conversation, you evade responsibility, and then it's somebody else's problem. See, there's two different levels of how people interact. Yeah, I do agree. Adult supervision, it is a moral problem, like the not having any type of principle to stand on and being willing to accept all nonsense like that. That's not a way I could be able to survive. But other people have. Yeah, ethics. Yeah, Mike. Yeah, that's what it is. A lack of ethics. Truly.
Right. Right. And that just goes to show you how backwards this space is has been in relation to the Black Brain Trust think tank. The fact that a space like that could be considered a negative in a space full of dumb dudes is really appalling because you literally are offended. You literally have men that are offended by the competency of the black men affiliated with a channel like the Black Brain Trust. When you really have to just sit back and think on that, that is absolutely insane. You're offended. You're offended because the men affiliated with the channel are competent men trying to help you move in a competent fashion. That's a serious problem. That's a serious problem.
I mean, but it's a serious problem for them, and it's not something that they can keep up forever. Like I don't go around being worried about it because the scoreboard ain't lying. The statistics are not lying. The lack of ability to work with other people outside this type of environment is not lying. And now you just can't survive by doing that any longer. I say
Right.
this, man, just work with the people who are ready. Go
Yep.
after the youth who already don't trust anybody, and bring tangibles to the table. People respect tangibles. You know what they don't respect? People with a lot of mouthpiece and nothing to show for it.
Yep. I've said that too. I've said that there's a lot of opportunities for black men to you have a lot of children, man, who have been basically orphaned because their parents have OD'd on meth and stuff like that. So that there's a lot of room for programs that could be centered around mentoring youth, at-risk youth, things like that. There's opportunities there. Um, to get into that, to get into it from a healthcare perspective, and because when you're dealing with children, like once you get past their traumas and stuff like that, when they feel that they can trust you, they'll listen to you. They'll take your information, they'll take it, and they'll run with it. And so a lot of these dudes are just so far gone that I mean, you could give them the blueprint right in their face, man, and they still won't take it, man, because they have you know they have already accepted defeat. They have already accepted it. But it's not from the external world. It's internal. They defeated themselves internally.
Yeah, but also It's kind of like getting this information and being in a society where you can't enact it. Like you can give people all the IT help that you want to, but if they're like in Mississippi, it's not going to help them at all. There's really nowhere to put it into action. And it's like people become so attached to those environments because they leveled up who they are within those environments. They can't think of going somewhere else and being anything else.
Right, right, right. Well, that's what 50 said. He said years ago when he came into some space. I don't know where he was, and a guy was like, "Oh, you rap," and he was like, "Oh, that's cute." And but in his mind, coming from where he came from, he felt he was the man. But when he came into another environment where that wasn't even looked upon as some high level position, he realized he was like, man, I got to step my game up. So that's what he chose to do. He chose to step his game up. And so, you know, that's what you're talking about. Like if you're in an environment where a little bit of incremental movement is regarded as being a high level of success, you have no intentions or reasons to leave that environment because in your mind, in that environment, you're the man. You know, so you don't really have to really improve. And that's what we're seeing in this space. Like anything that's regarded as a dude looking successful is such a major thing because the standards are so low. Any incremental movement is regarded as progression when it's really not.
And also, progression is the enemy of people who want to stay where they are and people who's comfortable where they are. And they'll
Right.
sacrifice anything and anyone to keep things the same. Awesome. Oh, Mike, what's going on, man?
Salute, Mike. Salute.
Let's give him a second to get his mic straightened out. Mike, you
Hey,
there?
piece of the panel, piece of the chat. What's going on, man?
Peace, peace.
What's going on, dude?
Sure.
Oh, you can go ahead.
Oh no, I'm just catching up with the discussion. Where are you guys at right now?
No, we're talking about the lack of operation within the environment and how people stay in these situations to where they're doing perfectly fine and that they have to protect it in order for there to be no not progression because they're at the top of their quote unquote mountain, you know, within these stuck circumstances.
Yeah, the height of their success is the failure of others. And
Yeah.
so what they consider to be plentiful for them, for other people, that's starvation. India, Pakistan, Afghanistan, Syria, all those Arab, Middle Eastern countries, they can't afford to, lament off of, the validation of the female counterpart. They gotta go out there and get it. And so if that means that, they gotta sleep 6 to a 2 bedroom, then that's just what it's gonna be.
I mean, you can do that when you have an end goal that's, someplace that's going forward. To them, maintaining the environment itself is the end goal.
Yeah, yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And so, they do the things that we, in this community, guys would laugh at and call them, whatever description you can come up with, whether it's an EL or, bottom feed or whatever they want to call it. We see women come from war-torn countries and still keep their femininity intact. What's the problem?
Right. Mm-hmm. Sure do.
What's the problem? You got, women coming straight out of Syria come to the United States and still, still feminine. What's the problem?
Jay Shine even talked about it when he went to Egypt with his daughter. Shout out to him. He talked about how a lot. I mean, he showed us videos of piles of trash that they had over there, and how poor it was. And he was like, how those men still got respect. The women were still feminine too, and you know, I just for me, it's just one of those things where um I read in the book there is a such thing as a fear of failure, but actually the fear of failure is not necessarily a bad thing, because the fear of failure can make you actually concentrate even more, because you fear the failure. You don't want to feel the failure, that you focus so much and you actually succeed. But then there's another thing that's dealing with the fear of success. And when you fear success, then what you have internalized is the idea that you're not worthy of that. And so if you feel that if you've internalized that you're not worthy of what success is, then you're not going to even go for it, because the very success that you should go for, it actually makes you feel bad about who you are. And so that's a real thing for a lot of dudes. That's a lot of men out here who don't even feel that they're worthy of that position. So that's why they don't go for it.
Yeah,
But the
Well,
problem
yeah, but I
is
can
when
explain
they're
that
trying
position.
to
I, I,
say that
I
again.
can explain that. Yeah, I can explain that. What it is that they know if they reach a certain point, they're not going to be able to merge the inner and outer horizon of where they're going, because they want to keep their same people that they constantly have been around. Like this is how
Right.
you have like productive people within the space, but if you pay attention to who they're around, they're still around those incompetent people, but they want to keep everybody happy. So the majority of people who they have to hang around is the dude, the kind of hood hugs type dudes. So
it,
yeah, it's crazy.
no,
Right,
to
go ahead.
Ryle's point, in the tech world, we call it imposter syndrome. When you feel like you're in a position that you're unqualified for, or you have the aspiration to be in that position, but you really don't have the tenacity to stay in that position. And so you start to feel like you're an imposter, it's an imposter syndrome. And so a lot of guys in this space, they definitely have that mentality where they 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 tell black people, we got to stop voting this way. Okay, so what's the alternative? Oh, the alternative is to, you know, do what I tell you to do. What is it that you tell me to do? Well, I don't really have the answers right now, but don't be asking me all these questions. See, it's that mentality that, I want to be in a leadership position, but I can't really govern anybody. I
They
really
can't
don't know
even
what to
govern
do in
self.
it. Yeah, I
No,
don't
they
even
can't
know.
even govern self.
Yeah, I don't even know what to do in a leadership position, but I want to be in that position. And so there's no real trajectory as to how to get to that position other than to strong arm everybody who they think is in the way. And the brain trust became that sort of that piñata in the manosphere, where everybody can kind of take a shot and say, well, you guys aren't really doing anything different than other people. Okay, so why aren't you doing it then? What's the problem?
No, I mean, it's the grading portion of it. You're only graded on it if it directly benefits them. Then you're doing something. If they could directly contribute to the conversation, then you're doing something. That's kind of what that is.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like somebody says in the chat, we need solutions. Well, we had solutions, right? We gave solutions for the last 2, 3, 4, 5 years, and you still have people, resetting the conversation. I mean, how do you work with people who don't believe in ethics? The solutions are there. The process has never changed in the last 100 years.
Yeah, well, when we talk about the environment too, we have to really truly understand what the environment is. First, you have your external world. Okay, America is a technologically well developed country. So the environment that men have to contend with now is not the external environment, as far as like wild animals, you know, clearing, things for development. We know how to do all of that. The environment that you have to contend with now as a man is thought. And what I mean by that is we're talking about productive thought. You have to come into the space and the realm of productive men to truly show your worth and value. And if you do not buy into that concept, you're going to be on the outskirts of of a competent world in which men develop. clearly in America, men have developed a competent world for men to have to conform to. There's no way you can get around that and be considered a man, because men have already built the world that you need. They've already built it for you. So all you have to do is come in and play your position, whatever that is, whatever you choose to decide in terms of your productivity. But the environment now is the thought world. That's why I said earlier, this is a knowledge-based economy. This is the term they use, and it's not just knowledge for knowledge's sake, it's practical knowledge. And so if you do not accept that, then you're going to always be on the outside looking in. And that's why we know for a fact that most of the men in this manosphere space are not about that life. Because if they were, the Black Brain Trust will have a damn million subscribers. It doesn't have that. That's the truth.
To your point, the Black Brain Trust wouldn't have 1 million subscribers. It would have more than 10,000. But the point of the matter here is that what it requires for guys to get to that level is accountability, and they don't really have that. It's not a part of the repertoire or the manifesto itself of what they're talking about, the Bravo manifesto. And so I think what's happening now is that the society is moving in a direction that they can't keep up with. It's moving too fast. No one knew that a pandemic would come in here and cause that much disruption to the global economy. And so these guys haven't really figured it out. They're still spinning their wheels. Society is moving at a pace that's, exponentially quicker than they can move at. And so now they want to hit up MOT. Oh, what about the trucking? Well, where were you at 2 and 3 years ago?
Right. And that's it.
Yeah, but what people
you got to step into the world. You have to step into the world that's already built for you. Like as far as Black men are concerned, we have no excuse for it, because one of the first things that Booker T. Washington set up was a trade school. That was the first thing he set up for Black men specifically. Why? Because he knew for that particular age how important, and during that industrial age, he knew that Black men were going to need those skill sets to make the money to build their community economically, so they will be separate and wouldn't have to be dependent upon them white folks like that. And so, but the very notion of that is literally looked down upon as from a group perspective. Those men in Black America representing that background are the least respected in the group, when that was one of the first things as an ex-slave Booker T. Washington actually set up, because he realized that he had the foresight to see how important it was at that particular time. That was a very important move that he made, setting that up for Black men, especially coming out of the slave experience, because Black men needed an institution that represented them. They needed that. Whether you like this politics or not, Black men did need that institution.
Correct. Yeah, it's just that what people don't get, that most of their life has been not participating. That's been what was normal to them. Waking up, doing whatever, not really being invested and involved is what was normal to them. Now, groups are just breezing past you, and you can't really do anything about it. Because why? You wasn't participating. And then they treat these people as if they wasn't working on things. I'm like, those people now, 40 years ago, they was working on the civil rights legislation to actually make sure that you participated in the process. So when you spent a whole bunch of time not participating at the level that you should, and making every excuse in the planet not to participate, and people leapfrog you because they had to come in on the bottom floor too, and they don't understand that, because they only want to come in when things are working properly. They don't want to invest in things actually becoming better. I mean, like, if these people were so concerned about custody, everybody in the country just concentrate on custody. It still requires a level of participation for people, no matter what. Because here's what happens if you solve the custody issue. You solve the child support issue without even talking about the child support issue. But these people want to be out on the front line. No, it has to be so called, the support for these XYZ type of men act, and that's the only way that they want to actually operate. When they don't want to operate in a more strategic manner than that. And it's like, dude, like a lot of this stuff happens. You got allies out there. You just have to start off with shared interests, and then you go off into your singular interests. But then
Right.
again, you still have to get to the productivity piece in order for this stuff to work. But the environment is based on the celebration of non-productivity. So how is any of this stuff supposed to work if there's no investment, no involvement? There's always deliberate levels of spreading misinformation. What's going on with Tom? Oh, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say strategic stagnation is maybe just the plan all along.
Man, I like
Make
that
it
word.
look
I like that. I like that.
make it look like I'm doing something, make it look like I'm ambitious, but in reality, I have no plans to do anything.
No.
Right? And so the idea is to eat off of everybody else's plate and not actually contribute at all. That's why there's all this discussion about, well, how am I going to get into cloud computing? Well, cloud security or cloud computing. Well, wait a second here, bro. You you don't even have the gumption to sit around for an hour and listen to a live stream that's going to get you there, but you want to go straight to that point. I can tell you right now, everybody on my team, and I'm speaking from a cloud technology standpoint, everybody has immense depth in tech. You ask them a question, they give you an answer. They're like Google. If you come in there half-stepping and you're not even willing to sit around for an hour live stream on the Brain Trust or any of these other channels, how are you going to get in? How are you going to move into that position? Well, they pay good money. It's like 150 grand a year. Yeah, that sounds good, but if you ain't got the wherewithal to sit around for an hour and listen to a live stream, how are you gonna absorb all that information to be in that position? It
Yeah, I mean,
sounds good.
but Mike, you have to realize that they're looking at the position immediately from what they can get out of it, not what they can invest into it and get something out of it. It's totally different.
Absolutely. And that's the state of Black men today. A pandemic has hit, came in, turned society upside down, and these guys are still wandering around like in Saving Private Ryan when they stormed the beach in Normandy looking for his
Right.
arm.
Right. Exactly. And the thing about it too is they can't use the excuse ain't nobody trying to help them, because there are so many programs out here that are geared, especially in all this woke type environment. So many companies have given money. They've set aside money in their companies to redevelop their own workers. You have partnerships between companies and government agencies that help. I was just reading in this employee training and development book, where they have companies out here that will, because they need to create those pipelines of talent. And what they're doing is partnering up with companies and local agencies, creating programs, paid programs, where you can go into, where you can get a stipend while you're in these programs. And when you're finished, you can come out here with a job making 50, 60,000 starting out, because they recognize that they really, this fight for talent is vital to the, not only to the bottom line of the company, but for the existence of the company. I mean, there are companies who have literally so many job openings because there's just the talent in terms of the pipeline is just not there. They have to literally work with the government to help actually build out the pipeline of talent.
And that's where the immigration piece come in at, that they don't get. That's why they have to go other places to get people to fill these jobs. So, and this is why when people start to have these stopgap uh, derailment conversations, you talk about progress, and then there's always some dumbass reason on why we got to focus on something that's easier than what we need to be focused on. For the most part, it doesn't really work that way. and it can change. It can change. Like I had to take up an interest in learning. It wasn't something that I always had to do, but once I seen my stake in the actual outcome of what was happening, I always wanted to be a part of the process. And you got to be the same way. You got to see yourself as being involved in the process. I mean, because a lot of people bring all this $100,000 problem to the table, and they can't see themselves doing anything else other than what they're doing. And it's like, dude, you could really fix all this stuff in a couple of years of just true focus on it. You got to be able, if you want the actual benefits of being an actual citizen, then you got to participate in the process like everybody else. You can't outsource something that's important to other people who don't have your best interest in mind. And you got to give up this environment in order to do it. You have to. Yes, they're going to attack you every single time that your masculinity is not verifying their actual past. That's the way it is. That's the way it's always have been. But the moment you have your own stuff outside of this stuff that's based on skills and abilities, dude, you're going to be fine. You're going to be fine. It's going to be foreign to you, and then all of a sudden, it's going to be natural to you. But that's a process within itself, too. You can't sit around and wait on other people to do this on your behalf. It's your job, it's your responsibility to get this stuff running. You can't expect people to just give you power. Power comes from participation and organizing. There's no other way to this organically done. You know, you can say all this stuff about how you voted and you never got anything out of it. Yeah, the Cleveland Brown has also mismanaged their front office and all those draft picks. Did they go to the Super Bowl because they was quote unquote participating in the same process? No. You got to manage the stuff right in order for it to get something, the majority of things out of it. That's the only thing that's different here. Those people are just acting and participating. They're not any smarter than you. It's on number 16. Thanks for $5 super chat. But yeah, but that's where we're at right now. So it's like, look, I don't have a problem being an individual because it's being an individual and participating. That is what's going to make all this stuff work. A lot of people want to be part of this quote unquote group because they don't have anything to show for their individual actions over the time that they've been here. And actually hiding behind and leveraging more productive people's track record than they have is the only thing they do have. You don't have to operate like that. You let these people operate like that because that's their only choice and that's their only voice. It doesn't have to be you. I want to thank you guys for coming through. This live stream is about invalidated masculinity. The reason why they have to stay on the offense to protect the system. They want to make something that is a statistical impossibility look like it's normal. You have to understand, once you turn this stuff off, that's when the real work begins. There's not going to be a whole lot of people out there with you, by you, trying to help you, or even protect you. Most of the stuff you're going to have to leave everybody out of anyway. But the results are the same. I really want to thank you guys for listening. I'm the man tomorrow. You guys have a really nice day. Peace.